The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his apostles, I have come to set the earth on fire, and how I wish it were already blazing. There is a baptism with which I must be baptized, and how great is my anguish until it is accomplished. Do you think that I have come to establish peace on the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, a household of 5 will be divided, 3 against 2, 2 against 3. A father will be divided against his son, a son against his father, a mother against his daughter, a daughter against her mother, a mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. The Gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, there are a lot of scriptures that are challenging to preach on, but this takes the cake. I mean, really, right? Well, we have to explain it, of course, but I mean, reading it like that, and out of context, just that little segment from Luke chapter 12, some people might say, oh, I'm doing good work. I'm fulfilling God's law because I hate my mother, I hate my father-in-law, I hate my, all this stuff. So I'm doing good work, They must be evil. So therefore, I got to hate them. That's not. We got to take the whole gospel. We can't just take, it's not a menu, okay? I'll take one from column A and one from column B. This is the whole gospel. It's a whole message that Christ gives us, not only in Luke, but the 4 evangelists. That's why we have 4 gospels, because none of the gospels has the totality of the message of Christ. They were all attempts to share the good news, which was Jesus Christ. Luke, Matthew, and Mark have their own version. They're called synoptics. John has his own version, which is called unique, and of course his is ethereal. And when St. Jerome was applying symbolism to the 4 Gospels, he said, in the Old Testament there are 4 beasts, not like bad things, but beasts from the perspective of ancient civilizations were extraordinary figures that decorated the palaces of the kings. And in the Old Testament, Daniel, there is a vision that Daniel is having around the throne of God, and these extraordinary figures worshiping God. Well, the four figures are, and then we'll talk about this particular gospel, the 4 figures are the eagle, and Jerome compared that to John's gospel, because John's gospel soars. It's not just like a blood and guts, common walk on earth gospel. It's something special. It shows the divinity of Jesus in a very special way, and it shows the relationship of Jesus and John, the author. Okay, and then we have Mark, short gospel, very fast. The whole gospel is very short, and Jesus goes from here to here, pronouncing the kingdom and the resurrection, and St. Jerome compared that to the figure of the lion, the cat, who moves fast. The Gospel of Matthew starts with the genealogy of Jesus. And if you open the Gospel, the beginning chapters, you hear this one was related to this one, this one was related to this one. You have all the genealogy going back to Adam up to Jesus through Mary and Joseph. And that is compared to the winged human figure around the throne of God. And then we have the ox. The ox is like down-to-earth kind of animal. The ox carries a lot of weight on its shoulder when it's plowing the field or the water. And the ox, when we look at the Gospels beginning with Luke, we see the warmth and the earthiness of the stable, and the Jesus on a donkey with his mother, and going into the stable where the animals are going to be laying alongside him. And of course, the ox is associated with that, the earthy. And that's how St. Jerome just related. There's no dogma for this. It's related. So we look at the Gospel of Luke, And here we have Jesus, he's preaching, he's going along, and he's getting, my words, getting fed up. You know, he's doing good works and they're not appreciating it. And then he sort of hits it on the head. He says, you know what, maybe, this is me, not Jesus, okay? He says, maybe I'm being too nice. Maybe I got to hit them right between the eyes and really set it straight. Because we presume Jesus knew his destiny. We don't know 100%. We don't know the human consciousness of Jesus, okay? Every now and then in the scriptures, he has an opening to the Father. He has and then we share that, the relationship he has with God the Father. But we don't really know if he really knew, like, I'm God, okay? It came and went, okay, that in the scriptures. Again, it's not a biography, it's a gospel. So here, Jesus is making it straight. You know, cut all the nonsense of being a nice guy. I'm coming to earth to separate. I'm asking you to stand up for what you believe. I'm going to turn the world on fire. As a matter of fact, I wish this fire was already blazing the world. So those of us who follow God can really be honest and follow God, and those who are divided from God will be divided from God eternally. And now, don't forget, the Gospels weren't written on the scene. They weren't like, you know, Twitter. He did it, and we progressed it. You know, we sent it out. That's not the Gospels. The earliest Gospel was written 70. Jesus maybe stayed on earth until 33. So there's many years after the Gospel. So the Gospels are dependent upon the oral traditions, what people said Jesus said, and what the early apostles said Jesus said. And then it was all accumulated. And very much the Gospel of Luke, because of the intimacy in the stories, very often is associated with Mary as being the narrator to Luke. Again, tradition, because Luke has some certain stories in there that only a mother could have told him, who really knew what was going on from the inside. So here it is. Luke is saying to us through his memory of Jesus and his following of Jesus through the oral traditions of the gospel, Jesus is very serious. And he knew at this time, when this gospel was being written, he knew in advance, we don't know that if you're going to be a Christian, you might be divided from your mother or father who wants to be a pagan, who doesn't want to convert. And that's tough. Okay. I'm not pro tearing the family apart over religion. So there are people who want to marry out of the church and all that. There are certain stipulations that we undertake over that. But we don't blackball a person because she or he is marrying outside the church. The early church did, because it was dependent on your life. You either are a Christian, you follow Christ, and you take on the laws of Christ, and you get rid of the Jewish laws, you get rid of the pagan laws, and you take on the laws of Christ. And the gospel coming from this Sunday summarizes that. Love the Lord your God with your whole heart and your whole soul, and your neighbor as yourself. And if you're not going to take that law, divided from me. Well, I take a Jesus, but my father doesn't. Well, then you need to be divided from your father. Because you can't be surrounded by negative influences. And again, I want to update this to 21st century because Jesus was speaking in a time of persecution. And although the church is being persecuted in many ways today as well, we have to relate it to the times. You know, we have to update it. We're not changing the gospel, we're updating it. So the church has come to realization that there might be in our family people who are non-Catholic, maybe people who are non-Christian. Our obligation as Christians is to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And our neighbors might be the guy next door, my sister, my brother, the person on the other side of the world. So as we accumulate a consciousness of our faith, we have to look at the gospel and say, he was very serious. Now, go like this. Each one of us has to look at ourselves. Am I totally for Christ? Am I totally, unconditionally associated with Christ because of my baptism? Do people know me as a living Christian based on my baptism and based on my unity of Christ? That's different. It's easy to go point to other people. He or she is not a Christian, so, maybe I should stay away from him. But we need to look at ourselves first, because I'm baptized into the baptism of Christ's blood. Now, when he talks about the division that is coming, it is a baptism with which I must be baptized, and how great it is until it is accomplished. He could have very well been referring to his crucifixion. He took his baptism of John so seriously that now the next stage of that baptism is responding to the voice of the Father as he understood the Father in his prayer, going to the cross. That's our choice. That's what we're asked to do. And not only once in a while, every day. Like currently, the sign is on the outside door. The donations for Thanksgiving can be brought into the community room. That's great, because it's November and we're going to gather food baskets for the poor. Not enough. I'm not telling the church what to do, this particular parish what to do, but that sign should be on the door every day of the month and every month of the year. As I know, anytime you come in, you see bags of food at the entrance. How appropriate. Because that's what we need to do, continuously loving our neighbor as ourselves. And this is our baptism of challenge. And maybe we all should be burning with that baptism of faith, as Christ invites us to.